Ebusian for her Ghanatube so more dog for snowy masai so atina say. Maka Bwabwa in sem and no ede bro. Ebusian for in sem no door so the sign interesting. Yinkoti embra.
Bank of Ghana says it will inject over $1 billion into the economy this October to help stabilize the city ahead of the Christmas season. Now, we know that the move is part of efforts to enhance there are enough dollars in circulation to support imports and keep prices from rising too sharply. For many Ghanaians, that might sound like something only economists should care about, but it affects everyone. The value of the city influences how much we pay for everyday essentials such as a bag of rice, cooking oil, fuel, and transport. So how does this injection work, and can releasing more dollars into the market really make your Christmas rice cheaper? And by the numbers today, we answer these questions, and we're going to the dashboard right now to help explain this for you further, because a number of persons as well have suggested that, look, $1.15 billion is good enough money that can and should be invested into the Ghanaian economy, amongst many other things. Is that the case? Can that be done? Is that what the Bank of Ghana is seeking to do? Is what we're going to be finding out right now on the dashboard for us here on News Central. And so we know, for starters, that 1.15 billion is what the Bank of Ghana is seeking to inject into the Ghanaian economy, seeking to, amongst many other things, stabilize the Ghana city. But there's considerable justification as to why this should be the case. And amongst all of this, there are those who ask the question, what happens to the country's total foreign reserve and whether or not this impacts our imports cover. We'll seek to explain that for you. But here's what we've known in the trajectory of interventions from the Bank of Ghana, amongst many other things. As at the last time of check, say December 2024, we stood at $8.98 billion in terms of import cover. But that's gone up astronomically as at August, in excess of what? Nearly $2 billion That's up to $10.74 billion and that's 4.5 months of import cover for us as a country. It's always important that is in the higher side, and amongst many other things, we'll seek to get an explanation as to that. But this is what the trend of the currency market has to look like, particularly the performance of the cedi, and then we'll zero in as to why all of this is important, because we know that as at the last time of check, the IMF as well had raised concerns about the intervention of the Bank of Ghana and asking that it be checked somewhat. And in one of such reports, because we know the IMF is in town, they had asked for a certain formality in all of the BOG's intervention in the forex market. But we've moved from 15.26 as at May, we dropped to 10.28, and then now we're hovering around 12.35. But this is rates according to the Bank of Ghana. That's the central bank figures is what we're given to you. When you go to the forex bureaus and the banks, you more often than not will find out that they are a little higher, and there have been conversations, particularly as to what speculation is seeking to say in terms of moving this from 12.35 higher, and what that could mean for you and me in terms of fuel prices and the likes. Remember, already this week, we've had transport operators say they are monitoring what fuel prices will be like in the next pricing window and decide whether or not they'll begin to make a push for an increase in transport fares. So quite a number of issues which hinges on the performance of the cedi against the dollar to see whether or not price remains stable or they go up. Let's get into it a bit more in terms of why this will matter to you. And so we're seeing the BOG at this stage seeking to pump in $1.15 billion into the Ghanaian economy. What they're seeking to do is hold the cedi firm and have it stay where it is. And that will mean that prices will remain relatively stable, and it will ease the cost of imports as well for us as a country then prices, we understand, will stay steady. And when we say prices, that will include fuel, will include the bag of rice, which will be expected to be coming in, because when you have the conversation with the traders, they begin to do the importations around this time of the year. And so the demand for forex peaks, or it hikes, if you can say that, and that's amongst many other things what results in the hike, and then the cedi begins to fluctuate, and then we see, amongst many other things, a bit of a challenge. But we're going onto the phone lines right now, and then speak to Dr. Peter Korte, or Professor Peter Korte, I should say, on what all of this means, and possibly as well what we should be doing in terms of getting a bit more in terms of the responses. He's a professional economist and an executive director, a former executive director of ESA. Prof, appreciate you speaking to us this afternoon. We know inflation has slowed 9.4%. Can this dollar injection translate into lower prices? Because even as inflation has slowed to 9.4, there's a conversation that prices of food continues to remain high.
Yeah, good afternoon to you and to your discerning viewers and listeners. Yes, this is a season where prices tend to be very high. In other words, there's a lot of pressure in the last quarter of the year. Importers tend to import for the Christmas, and then even after the Christmas, firms that have made profits for multinationals repatriate profits, etc. So there's a lot of pressure on the ST rate. There is a lot of pressure on prices. And therefore, we cannot exactly tell the outcome of the injection, whether it will minimize the effect of the pressure, the last quarter pressures, but whether it will be able to outweigh the pressures and ensure a lower price or lower inflation rate, we are yet to determine.
We've seen quite a number of interventions from the central bank this year. We saw in excess of $1 billion in the early part of the year. Now the Bank of Ghana has announced 1.15 billion in terms of a further injection in this last quarter. There are those who raise concerns that these frequent interventions could possibly lead to a drain in terms of foreign reserve and import cover. Where do you stand on this, and what's the argument you put forth in terms of what the BOG can do in the long run to improve the stability of the city? And I know this is a question that is asked far too many times.
Yeah, one thing we should know is that the Bank of Ghana is managed by very competent people. It has a board, it has a monetary policy committee that includes both independent members. So they monitor whatever, and they have oversight over money supply, they have oversight over the market, they regulate the forex market, they regulate the banks and other financial institutions. So they are very well placed to know what our reserves are, how much is going out, and what we can do and what we cannot do. At the moment, our reserves are quite high, and averagely you need something of 30% of import cover. We have more than that, so I don't expect us to have any challenge. And I'm sure they are monitoring the process. So we shouldn't panic when it is not appropriate. I don't think Bank of Ghana will continue to pump money in the system. Their role or mandate to ensure price stability and also ensure economic growth and prosperity. So that mandate is what they are pursuing currently as we speak.
Thoughts finally on the decision to announce this time around. We had seen concerns raised by the IMF just some months ago about the intervention policy of the BOG, asking for a bit more clarity. Is this announcement we're seeing from the Bank of Ghana seeking to tick the box for the IMF even as they are in town and there's a fifth review?
Untoward, not doing anything illegal. They are working within their mandate. It's an advice from the IMF, basically asking them to have some kind of like a structure or a timetable as to when to intervene. You want to say every quarter or every month, this is how much I'm going to intervene. But then there is that discretion as well. You should also allow some discretion on the part of Bank of Ghana, that when they see the market, they see some unusual demand, they quickly have to step in before it translates onto the market. There is a noisy part of the market, and that is the black market, that is the Forest Bureau, that aspect. They form about 20% or thereabouts, but they are quite noisy. So if you allow whatever happens in the banking system to translate into that arena, you will hear a lot of speculation, a lot of noise, and that is exactly what Bank of Ghana is trying to avoid, and therefore the interventions as and when the need arises.
Prof, I appreciate you speaking to us. That's Professor Peter Cortes, a former director of ESA, speaking to us this afternoon on the latest in the announcement by the central bank. There you have it. It's expected to, amongst many other things, stabilize the city. That will control pricing on the market, and so you will not have to see sporadic increases in the cost of what you spend money on in getting the everyday goods for both the household and the businesses as well. That'll take a
comment section no with your comments no and there are my magic prayer I can kind Nina am of a make I will be say a Ghanatube. So for subscribe, please subscribe, hit the notification bell for more updates. And one more of slowly. Siadi Macam.